弟兄姐妹平安。我们华人牧者团契从现在开始呢，我们会开始一个系列的这样的一个节目，叫做信仰与文化和社会。借着我们当前所面临的各样的这种时局的变化、文化的这样的撕裂、道德的滑坡等等，我们来回应这样的社会的问题，我们思考的问题。那我们的角度呢，是从回归在美国的建国以来，无论是从教育，无论是从历史，无论是从它的总统大选，无论是从它的宪法等等这些的方面，来回归它的最初的这些从圣经来的这些的理念，这些的寻求建造和社会实践，也可以说是回归起初吧。那么借着在美国社会和文化的这样一个信仰的实践，它的见证，它的历史的痕迹，让我们来思考，我们今天在海外的基督徒，我们应该怎么样的来面对我们自身的教会、家庭、社区等等这些的问题。同样，我们也可以说对全球的华人基督徒都是一个借鉴。那么呢，我们这个节目的主要的这个讲员呢，就是 Kinzer。那以前呢，大家可能有这个印象，看过我们节目的，我对他做了一个采访，我把他称之为愚公校长。他也是在美国专门教这样的homeschool 的学生，他也自己成立了一个基督教的学院。那最开始呢，我就问他，你为什么要成立一个学院，一个叫基督教的学院？那他说他发现比方说哈佛大学以前是专门培养传道人的，普林斯顿是专门培养长老的，结果他们都变了，都离开了最开始的根基。所以他就祷告了5年，跟一些的同工一起寻求，最后他就决定他要自己开始一个从零开始一个基督教的学院。那包括从初中的教育、小学的教育、高中的教育，一直到大学的教育，他都重新开始。我就说，哇，你这样来做的时候，那不是一个愚公移山吗？所以我就把他称之为愚公校长。那后来发现在很多年前，当华人还是来追求常青藤学校，还是来追求哈佛大学的时候，在那个时候我就注意到他在做这件事情，所以我当时就百思不可其解。我说至少华人不会来上你这个学校。但是到了疫情的时候，到了现在美国的文化社会巨大的变化撕裂的时候，我就发现我非常的钦佩他，我也非常的认同他的观点，甚至我说我也跟你一起来愚公移山吧。这个就是我们邀请他来一起合作的这样一个目的，也是这中间的一段的见证故事。所以呢，我就跟他一起来商量，来做这样一个的系列。这一共有7个系列，那每个系列呢是7集，也就是说7期49集我们可能有全年的计划这每一系列每一集呢不长，每一课只有10分钟。那这样的一个7期49集的话呢，里面是包括了很多的美国的历史文化。当然他说不一定是美国的历史，是全球的历史，对吧？那么这个里面呢，最主要是从圣经世界观的角度来看社会、文化、信仰、教育、家庭等等。那这个同时呢，也是他教这个在家教育的基督徒的孩子的很多年的结晶。 所以其实你也可以把它看成是一个教材系列。我们特别在各地的 homeschool 的孩子，无论是在中国国内还是在海外，都可以用这个作为一个教材。那甚至以后我们可以跟他商量，甚至算他学校的学分。以后每一个系列7集系列7集讲完一个系列之后，我们有个总结，有个讨论，就是每7个这样的课结束之后，我跟他有一个讨论，有一个提问有一个总结。那么这样的话呢，就一直会有这样一个星期一课，这样的话呢，一直到明年。我们愿神祝福这样一个事工，我们也来祝福所有的在来参与这样课程学习的这样的家长、这样的孩子、这样的同工弟兄姊妹。如果有这样的共同的愿望和意向，愿意来一起来合作做愚公移山的这样一个基督教的教育的机构、教会弟兄姊妹，都可以来跟我们联络。愿神祝福大家。
Well, hi, I'm Jian Kinzer, and I'm here with you today, and we are starting the first series of the introduction of the principles of history. And this is our first session. So we're going to do an overview of what these principles are and why these are important. You know, one of the things that we see in history is that America was founded as a Christian nation. And biblical truths shaped the thinking of the founding fathers in America. That's what we would call a biblical worldview. A worldview is like the glasses that you look through when you view the world. So these principles that we're going to be talking about, there's 7 of them in the next few sessions, are going to show you how did the founding fathers of America think, especially in the colonial period, that even today, many of these principles are still operative. So I'm going to start by just mentioning something a little bit about what a principle really is. So a principle as defined in the 1828 Webster Dictionary. Noah Webster was the father of the American dictionary, and he was a Christian. He became a Christian at age 50 in 1806. In 1808, he started writing this dictionary, and it took him 20 years. So this was quite a labor. And Webster was loved words. He loved the roots, the meaning of words. So let me define principle for you. Principle is the cause, source, or origin of a thing. Principle is a primary truth upon which depend many secondary truths. Webster says a principle is that from which anything springs. It's like a seed. So if you think of a seed, if you split open a seed, I'm not doing a red hot job, a great job on that seed, but inside the seed, there's a leaf. Inside the seed, there's also a root. And of course, there's food inside the seed. In biology, we say endosperm. It's food that's inside the seed. So that seed, when you open it up, you see the whole plant is ready to go. So a principle is like a seed. It contains the whole idea that's going to spring forth. So a principle might be, as a Christian, might be that I want to serve God. God is worthy of my service. So that's a principle. Now, there'll be other truths. So I'm going to look to Him. I'm going to seek His will for my life. I'm going to serve Him and no other gods. So those would be subordinate truths. So that principle is that God is worthy. He's awesome and He's wonderful and He's all-powerful. He's worthy of my service. So you can see, if we plant the wrong ideas in our students' hearts, if we put the wrong principle there, like an example would be that man just evolved and happened by accident. See, that's a bad principle. Bad subordinate truths will result from that. Man will have no value. Man will be just an object that someone can possess. Man does not have any innate rights. So that principle is kind of, we would say, rotten to the core. It's not a true principle. But if we plant the right kind of seed in our hearts, in our students' hearts, that truth is going to break out and it's going to yield a good harvest. So principle is very, very important. We're going to be looking at 7 principles. Now, another thing that we want to look at is, what does it mean to educate? What is education? So Noah Webster defined education. He broke it down. It comes from 2 Latin roots, a and duco. A, or even ex, means from, and duco means to lead. So education has the sense of leading a child into truth. You lead, the teacher leads the student, but also a drawing from the child, that you draw from to see if they got it, if they understand it, okay? So here's Webster's definition. Education is the bringing up of a child, instruction. Education comprehends all the series of instruction and discipline intended to do 4 things. Here's the first one. It enlightens the understanding. Now, we as Christians would say the Holy Spirit enlightens our understanding about things. It's a very spiritual thing to educate. Number 2, education corrects the temper. So we have to correct the temper of our child, of our student. Number 3, it forms the manners and habits of youth. So part of our education is helping our student become well-mannered and have good study habits. And lastly, it fits them for usefulness in their future stations. So education prepares them for the future. Now listen to what he says. This is fantastic. He says this: to give children a good education in manners, arts, and science is important. To give them a religious education is indispensable, he says. And an immense responsibility rests on parents and guardians who neglect these duties. So we have to educate, but it needs to be a spiritual education as well. So I would say that to the extent that a country, a nation, or a people lets biblical ideas, biblical principles planted in their hearts, to the extent that that people trains and educates their children in biblical ideas, biblical principles, and we're going to look at 7 biblical principles coming up in the next sessions. To the extent that country does that, it is a Christian nation. It is planting biblical truths. It is having a big impact on the future of that country. So I would say this: plant principles in the hearts of your student. Remember, the heart is like soil. It's internal. Plant those principles. Don't be just making your students look good on the outside. It's the heart. It's the soil. It's the seed. If you plant the right kind of seed, guess what? one day you will yield a good harvest, the right kind of harvest. Just like this seed is a corn plant or a wheat plant, if you plant a corn seed in the soil, you're going to get corn. If you plant love and kindness and Christian character in your student, guess what you'll get? Love, kindness, Christian character. So remember, God plants His seed, His principles in our hearts. God bless you as you teach.